Hey, hello, I'm Kråkan, also known as Kråkan, and welcome to Closet Movie Rambles, where I talk about old movies that I found in my closet while cleaning. This week's movie is Laputa, Castle in the Sky, and it's a Studio Ghibli movie from 1986, and it's about 1 hour and 59 minutes long, and also there will be spoilers up ahead. So the movie starts with a pirate airship attacking a bigger airship, and they're raiding it because they want a girl that's on it, or something that she has rather. And the girl is guarded by these agents, and she's kept there against her will, and she basically knocks one of the guards out and tries to escape, but the pirates try to enter her room and capture her, so she climbs out of the vessel and she slips and she falls. But she doesn't fall to her death. She has this crystal around her neck like a necklace. It's and she basically falls safely down. And then cutting to an intro credits where showing a lot of industrial machinery and Laputa and all this kind of industrial stuff. And it's hand drawn, it's really beautiful. It shows the winds blowing and everything. And then cutting to a young boy getting ready for his night shift at I think it's a quarry. His name is Patsu, and he gets like meatballs or something, and he goes to see his boss. But on his way to this mine shaft or dig site or whatever you call it, he sees this girl floating down, and he catches her and basically lies her down. And then his boss is screaming at him to go help him because the machine is going haywire and a lot of steam is spewing out of it, and they have to close the valves. And meanwhile, the workers are getting up from the elevator, so Patsu have to operate the elevator. And the workers get up, and they kind of says like there haven't been any good findings of late, and if this is being kept up or whatever, they will most likely lose their job. And they basically are in a bad mood, so they call at the end of the day, and the boss tells like Patsu to oil the damn machine up anyway. And then cutting to the pirates actually looking for the girl. And there's a funny fact, like all these pirates are called the Dola gang because it's of one girl pirates. Also the mother of all the pirates called Dola. And it's kind of funny because there's like all these men, but they're all her sons. So they're looking for the girl for a specific reason. And then cutting to Patsu waking up in his little place, and he goes up to the top of his house to let his birds out. And he starts to play the trumpet. He has a trumpet, and he wakes the little girl up basically. So Shita goes up topside to see what's going on. And she meets up with Patsu, and she explains that her name is Shira, and they feed the birds and they talk a bit, and then Patsu tries on her necklace, and he tries to prove like he can float with her or something, so he jumps and he falls through a floor and he hurts himself, and they laugh at the disaster basically. And then Shira goes into the workshop to look at his stuff, and Patsu basically makes breakfast. I think she's actually about to refresh or something before breakfast. And then he goes down to the workshop, and Shira kind of asks what all this is. And there's a picture of Laputa that his father took back in the day, and people didn't believe his father and told him a lie, that he was a liar until the day that he died, and that's what killed him, as he says. But he is, in fact, he believes in fact that Laputa exists and is a real place, and that his dad wasn't wrong. So he's built this like plane. He's doing all these kind of things to prove the right thing, I guess. And then the pirates arrive, and they're basically looking for Ashida at this point. They are dressed up in much nicer clothes, and they're driving in an automobile, which is kind of modern to these kind of times. I don't know exactly what times it is, but there are a lot of steam work and machine and industry, so I don't know. And then what happens is that the pirates are trying to get into their house, and Shira is disguised as a boy. She's wearing this kind of boy's clothing and a cap, and they try to fool the pirates, but she loses her cap, and the pirates chase after him down to the town, and Patsu runs to his boss, and his boss defends them. And basically what happens is that they get in the back door, Shita and Patsu, and then escape to the train tracks. And the boss and one of the more beefier kind of pirates, they kind of exchange punches until the whole town basically starts to fight the pirates and everything. And then Dola arrives in a car, and Basically, she has seen Shida and they basically chase after him down to the train tracks. And Patsu gets on a train with Shida, and the Dola gang chases him on their automobile, following him, breaking the tracks as they go. And they get awfully close and crashes into the back of the train, and they try to separate the cars and everything. And Shida uses a shovel to kind of mobilize one of the or two of the pirates. And Patsu eventually loses one of the carts and try to stop him. And yeah. But then the train get intercepted by the military, and for once things are looking bright for the young couple. But all of a sudden Shita realizes that the military is traveling with the agents, and she runs off the track. And then the pirates and the military start shooting at each other, and basically while this is happening, Shida and Patsu are hanging on for dear life because the train track, the bridge, kind of collapse under them, and eventually they fall off. But since Shida has this flying stone, this necklace, they kind of fall down safely into a deep kind of cavern. And it's dark, so they light up a lantern and they travel along a little bit through the cave system, and they eat a bit, and then they come across another old man called Palm. He's this old kind of miner that lives down there for some reason. And they talk a bit, and he talks about that the stones in this cavern or this cave is kind of active and it's kind of strange. And he tells like stories of his grandpa and everything about this kind of material that's in the rocks, like flying rocks or Ethereum as he calls it. And he turns off the lantern, and he shows that the whole cave is glowing like a night sky because of the flying stone is active. That usually happens when Laputa, the flying city, is on top of these stones. And then Shida reveals her necklace. It is all glowing, everything, and Palm says that that's the biggest fly crystal or Ethereum crystal that he has ever seen. It's kind of dangerous in the wrong hands. So basically what happens is we get the explanation dump or whatever it's called, that she is actually royalty and everything, and she has inherited this, and she used to live in the mountains, but then the agents kind of took her and everything, and they need to be moving. So they kind of exit the cave, and the military kind of locates them right away, and they drop down on them. They knock Patsu out, and they basically lock him up in this military base, and they take Shida captive. And the agent of Muska, which is he's played by Mark Hamill, is a voice actor in the English dub, which I thought was very interesting. But anyway, he talked to this general, and he says like the pirates crack your simple code, and that's why we're in this mess in the first place. Otherwise we could just have picked up the girl or whatever. And a little bit later, Muska wants to show Shida something, so he takes her down to the basement to show her this big robot that fell from this flying island called Laputa, and it's a much more advanced robot. They don't really know what it's made of. It could be made out of anything. And he is in this for himself. He wants the power of Laputa for some reason. We don't really know why. But he needs her to remember the spell to awaken the location, because this necklace kind of is like a compass and kind of shows the way to where the city is and grants safe passage, I guess. And then cutting to Patsu in a cell, and he gets let out. And Shida and Muska is there. And Muska explains that she made a deal with him so that she will agree to help him to find Laputa if Patsu gets left free, basically. And Patsu he doesn't want to leave her with Muska in this state, in all this, but she has already made a decision. And Muska, in his because he's an asshole, he gives her like 3 or 4 kind of golden coins. It's like, good job or something, and now you can go home and forget all about this, because that's what she wanted. And then he leaves a broken man. He runs home, and Muska again tells her to remember the spell, which activates like the location tracker or whatever. And Patsu returns home all broken, and the Dola gang is in his house, and they tie him up to the wooden structure, and they eat food, and they kind of sit there and kind of being assholes. And then like Dola's kind of cryptophone rings, and she decodes another military message, and tell him that they're about to move the girl. So they move out, and Patsu kind of wants to join the pirates at this point because he got nothing to lose, and Dola kind of agrees, and so they ride out to the military base on these kind of hovercraft kind of flying carrier things. They look about a little bit like dragonflies. They have the same kind of wing principle in the flap kind of, and they try to go there. And Sheeta has a flashback in her room back to when she was young and living in the mountains, and her mom taught her the spell of protection, which she says out loud, and she activates the tracking beacon, but she also activates the robot, which goes haywire and it destroys most of the things. But basically what the robot is trying to do is protect her, because she's actually royal blood, but she doesn't really know this like all fully, I think. So anyway, the robot is trying to protecting her, but the military is trying to like destroy it, but everything goes haywire basically. And then Dola's gang arrive at the military base, and the robot is basically following Sheeta, or chasing her up to the rooftop. And then the Dola gang tries to save and pick up Sheeta, but it doesn't go well. She can't fly too close to the tower. And then the robot is kind of holding Sheeta, and she basically tells him to let her down, let her go, and it does, because it obeys the royal blood. And then the military fire upon the robot and actually destroying it. And then Dola is hit by some rocks and debris, and the craft kind of goes plummeted down, and because Patsu is on the craft as well, he tries to pull the lever up so they won't crash, and he managed to like skid it along the water, like fly along the water, and Dola wake up just before they smash into one of the rocks. So at this point they make a return for it and try to grab Sheeta, and they do. So Patsu hangs out from Dola's kind of hovercraft kind of thing, flying vessel, and he basically catches her, and they basically fly off, and they make like a smoke. The other pirates make a smoke screen so they won't be followed basically. And at this point Sheeta has dropped her necklace, so Muska kind of picks it up because it reveals the location of Laputa when she activated his spell, so he doesn't need her right now. She's just gonna follow the location basically. And the pirates return to their ship basically, and Patsu and Sheeta ask if they can join the pirates because they got nothing to lose, and they just want to see Laputa with their own eyes. And they kind of Dola kind of agree on this again, and they get to be part of the crew. So what happens is that Sheeta goes with Dola, and Patsu goes with the one of the boys to the machine room of this bigger aircraft. It looks like a chicken, kind of like a turkey, if that makes sense. Like a big kind of carrier plane. And he goes down to the engine room and he talks to this character referred to as Grandpa, which is keeping this thing afloat, and he's a mechanic. And Patsu is of course a natural, so he knows exactly how to fix machinery and whatnot. And at Dola's place, Sheeta kind of explains that due to the location of where she was standing, when the signal or the beacon was activated in her necklace, she kind of said like this direction. She points it to a compass and whatever other direction, so she's useful to actually navigating towards Laputa at this point. And then Sheeta gets shown into the kitchen, where she will be working. She will be feeding them like 5 meals a day. And when she arrives in the kitchen, there's like this big mess and everything is like chaos, and she starts to clean. And this is kind of a funny scene. One by one, the pirates are kind of liking her because there's not a lot of girls around, all boys. And they're kind of like falling in love with her in some ways. They're like knocking on the door one by one and asking if they could help her with something. And of course she says, yeah, you can peel potatoes or whatever, you can do this. And all the guys showed up there like with the same intention. I thought it was a funny scene because all of a sudden all of Dola's gang is helping her prep the dinner. So they eat and sleep, and Patsu gets to take the night shift. So he gets up into the crow's nest, and to have a watch basically. And Sheeta follows him, and they talk a bit while Dola is listening in on the intercom. and then they spot the Goliath, and they have to like dive it down in the clouds because the Goliath is firing at them. So what happens then is that there's like this cage which they're sitting on is actually part of like a glider. So they attach the glider upon over the clouds so they can have watch and see what's happening. And it's like strong gust of wind, and there's this big cloud, like a circle, kind of like a dragon's nest. I think they call it dragon's nest, but it's like the definition of it is like the wind is going at two different directions at the same time, making an unimpenetrable wall kind of. And all of a sudden the pirate kind of airship, the big one, is dragged into the stream, and the Goliath is right up behind them, and the Goliath start to fire at the pirate ship, and you think it gets destroyed and it gets sucked into the maelstrom, this dragon's nest. And what happens then is that their ship kind of explodes, and the wire that's holding Patsu's and Sheeta's glider is loose, so they get dragged into the dragon's nest as well. And in this dark kind of void with lightning and everything, Patsu kind of for a brief second sees his dad. It's some kind of weird kind of, maybe just like a time shift or something, but they get dragged in there as well, and they eventually crash, and then the fog kind of clears, and they're on Laputa, and they see this overgrown kind of landscape with ruins and everything, and wildlife, kind of beautiful, lots of flowers and growth. And they get greeted by this robot kind of that goes up to them, and it actually goes to move their glider, because it's like I think Patsu kind of think it's like a gardener or something, or a caretaker of the things, while the human kind of are gone, because it's been left basically as it was for some reason, for something that's happened in the past. I don't really remember, or actually I don't care to why, but it's a ruin. But the robot moves the glider and reveals that it's like a nest of birds' eggs underneath. They're not crushed by any ways. He moves the glider, and then the robot wants them to follow him. So they do. They follow him to this greenhouse, and it reveals like this big tree. The robot gives Sheeta a flower, and it kind of goes away in his merry way, kind of tend to what's happening. You know, he does his thing. So then they hear a loud explosion, and the Goliath has landed on Laputa, and the military is basically blowing up and taking all the gold that they can find, because there are riches and stuff there too. And the pirates are actually being kept, and they've been captured, and their ship is kind of in a kind of flyable state for some reason. I don't know, I thought it actually exploded, but whatever. And the pirates are being kept, and the military goes for the gold, but Muska has other plans, so he takes the remaining agent and goes to the Laputa control center. So the clouds around Laputa are basically dissipating and disappearing, and Patsu tries to save the pirates basically, but he gets spotted by Muska when he tries to open the door, and he fires at him. And at this point, Muska takes Sheeta as a hostage and drags her in behind this kind of door. And Patsu frees Dola with a knife, and he gets a grenade launcher in return that she has in her trousers for some reason. I don't know. And Muska takes Sheeta to the Laputa center, and it's overgrown with vines and all kinds of growth. And in the center there's this big blue flying crystal, and there's a control panel. And then what happens is that Muska kind of explains that he is also Laputan royalty for some reason. The kind of family was split. One went the other way and the other one to the mountains or whatever. So he can also use this crystal for some reason. But Muska lures the rest of the military forces into a trap, and then he disposes them, just dropping them out of Laputa because he's an asshole basically. And then he uses his destructive ability to show like what Laputa can do, and it's like one of these atomic kind of explosion from it basically. He just shoots down at the ground. It's this atomic explosion, and then he loses. Then he reactivates the robots, and they kind of attack the Goliath. And the pirate kind of hides in their ship because they realize if they move, the robots will attack them basically. So Patsu tries to climb inside, which he does, and while this is happening, Sheeta steals the necklace from Muska, and it kind of paused the effects of everything of the machine, and he's chasing her basically. So she is yelling after Patsu to come save him, and Patsu is basically looking for him, and they find each other, and there's like this crack in the wall, and she hides, and she kind of reach out with her hands, and she has the crystal, and he kind of grabs it, and she says like throw it in the ocean so no one will find it, and then Muska arrives and takes her a hostage, and Patsu uses his grenade launcher to break up the wall with the roots and everything, and Sheeta kind of runs from Muska, and he kind of shoots off her pigtails. Maybe it's like an how do you say, like intimidation. But then what happens is that Patsu arrives, and for some reason Muska agrees that like he wants the stone for himself, so show me where the stone is. And they got like a minute to discuss the plans, Sheeta and Patsu, and Patsu kind of says like, do you know the destruction spell, do you remember it? And there's like this destruction spell and life spell, and so basically she kind of whispers in his ear, and by actually holding hands and having the crystal in their hand, they say the forbidden destruction spell, and the destruction spell breaks down Laputa into its components, and it's a blinding light, and Muska kind of loses sight of everything, and the whole city of Laputa goes crumbling, basically falling apart, because it's partially nature, partially a machine with a power source. So everything is falling apart, and the pirate gang kind of gets out of there basically, and the whole scene in this like kind of vivid animated for the time in '86, I guess. Lots of rocks falling, and the machine kind of gets crushed and whatnot, and then basically the pirates escape, and the Laputa kind of takes to the sky, but there's not a lot of weight holding it down anymore, and Sheeta and Patsu is saved by the roots of the tree, and they use the glider to kind of escape Laputa, and they get picked up by the pirates, and they're kind of sad that they didn't get any gold, but the pirates have like stashed all these rings and jewelry on their fingers, and they're laughing, and what happens is that the pirates and they basically depart, and they go their separate ways. So what do I think of this movie? Well, it's one of the movies that actually made my life a little more easier when I was a young adult and I started working, because you all know that feeling that the first job that you had really sucked and you didn't want to work. And I went to this like I made parts for gearboxes and big heavy machinery, and every day I was afraid that something will break, and it was really like you got used to having a bad feeling in your stomach and feeling bad about the whole situation. It wasn't very good pay, but it was my first job, and I needed the money. I wanted to buy a guitar. I remember I like an electric guitar. But anyway, this movie actually helped me through some great troubles, because I was so worried about my life and everything, and how everything would cope out. Would I get my apartment? Will I get my life together? And I watched this movie like every night, and it was kind of a calming, soothing effect, and it made me feel warm and comfortable inside. I didn't watch the whole movie. I just watched it until like fall asleep, and the next day I felt a lot better. So this movie has a lot of kind of stuff emotional for me, and I really like the movie. But it actually holds up today as a movie as well. So if it's TV or any kind of anime provided service, go and watch it at least once, because it's a really well animated movie. And yeah, thanks for watching, and take care.